And away we go. It is the BCJ podcast, presented as always by our good friends at the Holy Grail. We will see you Saturday, 2:30 at the Holy Grail, the final BCJ official watch party of the football season. Get down and join us. And we can have a lot of fun with this because we have had a little bit of a problem this season, as UC and Ohio State have had competing kickoff times pretty much every road game. Well, this week, Ohio State doesn't play till 4. I'd love to see UC fans just take all the seating in the Holy Grail and make the Ohio State fans wait until halftime to get their seats this week. So be up for that challenge. We're coming off a win. Come on, people. The energy and the excitement is back in Bearcat football. Meet us at the Holy Grail, at the Banks. It is the premier sports bar in the city. Root on the Bearcats as they look for Big 12 win number 2. All right, let's get this show on the road. Hi, Dave. How you doing?
I'm good. I was just thinking about how we discussed last week if I was going to make an appearance, and I'm glad I didn't, because you know what would have happened if I did.
Yeah, they would have lost, and it would have been your fault.
Right. So now that they won, it is also my fault.
Yes. So now you have a reason not to come to watch parties anymore. This week you have an excuse.
Yes.
Because you're going to be in Morgantown.
I am. Very excited.
I'm sure. Is your brother going?
Of course. Him, a bunch of his buddies. Yeah, we're getting the whole crew back together at the Residence Inn right there by the stadium.
So we've got special guest Chris Anderson from earsports.com. Chris, what you don't know is Dave's older brother went to West Virginia.
Younger brother
went to West Virginia. So the whole Simone family will be there, kind of a homecoming of sorts and senior day, right, for West Virginia.
Yep, that's right.
So we will get to talking West Virginia here in a second, but first, it's Talking Big 12, brought to you by Team Ticker, teamticker.com. And guess what, Dave? Holiday season. Black Friday sale.
Ooh, buddy.
Black Friday sale, Aaron. Get ready to change the information there. I forgot to tell you this before the show. My bad. $50 off when using the code Black Friday, all caps. So go to teamticker.com. You can see I've got the CPAW here. Aaron has the Bearcat. And if you just put Black Friday at checkout, use the code, and that will get you $50 off. And this is good news for Chris. I'm going to hook Chris up with the Team Ticker guys. West Virginia is the next market to launch. They've got Cincinnati. They've got Michigan State. They've got Penn State. West Virginia is coming next. So I'm going to get Chris hooked up with our fine folks at Team Ticker. And, I assume they'll have the WV, maybe the Mountaineer with the musket.
Oh, I'd have to go with the Mountaineer if I had a choice. I might see it right here next time.
I don't know which ones they're going to do yet, but they have informed me that West Virginia is next. So we will get you hooked up with them. They have been an outstanding sponsor as we talk Big 12 every week right here on this show. So teamticker.com, Black Friday, all caps. That is your code.
No space, or is there a space or no space?
No space, all caps. One word, Black Friday, and that will save you $50. There you see it scrolling through the Big 12 football standings right now. It's got the basketball standings. It plays the fight song at kickoff and tip-off. The one thing you do have to be careful there, Chris, they will add some Olympic sports in here. So you will not be expecting it, or you will not be thinking about it. You'll just be in your office working, and then all of a sudden the fight song will come on. And you're like, what is starting right now that I missed? 11 o'clock this morning, women's basketball tip. Team Ticker. All right, Dave, I will turn this over to you. You are the maestro when it comes to previewing our opponents every week, and you and Chris can take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you. And thank you, Chris, for joining us again. I know you joined us as kind of a preview, and that's kind of where I want to start is when we had you on before the season, we talked about that there was certainly some smoke, surrounding Neil Brown and how this season was going to go. And Could they be making a coaching change at some point during the season? Obviously, that hasn't happened. The record is 6-4. Could be, I mean, outside of just a wild Houston game, I mean, could be 7-3. But my question is, like, I do a little browsing of your board and just kind of get like a temperature check, and it seems like the vibes are not exactly feeling it. So, like, are fans looking at the record and maybe saying we should be better? Are they dissecting the games a little more closely, even in some of these wins? Like, I would have thought, hey, we're 6-4. We thought we might fire the guy by October, and we're certainly not there. Where is, like, what's going on kind of with WVU and the fan base?
A little schizophrenic, I think, is the term you're looking for here. Back and forth throughout the season. That 4-1 start, the wins over Texas Tech and TCU eased things quite a bit. Losing at Houston on that Hail Mary and the way it happened and to the former coach, that sent some people. Oklahoma State a week later, same thing. Like, they're up 4, getting the ball back in the fourth quarter. You run into your own punt returner, which results in a muffed punt and things fall apart. So fans are upset, get a couple wins, feel a little better. And then you get Oklahoma. And I think this is where fans are right now. It's because, yeah, you say 6-4, and there's a chance here, with Cincinnati, Baylor, 2 games. I'm guessing West Virginia will be, I think they were 4-point favorites for this one. They'll probably be favorites against Baylor, depending on what happens this week. It's a possibility that West Virginia could go 8-4. And it's also a possibility that with that 8-4 record, exactly 0 of those 8 wins would be over a team that finished bowl eligible,
right?
Which is kind of remarkable. And fans have kind of latched onto that because, they're hoping for wins, obviously, and you get to 8, should feel good. But the way they lost at Oklahoma, who I would say is probably like maybe like the barometer where you're measuring your team at, it was embarrassing, to be quite honest. I mean, that's what Neil Brown said words. He said, disappointed and nearly embarrassing, because West Virginia looked like they shouldn't have been on the same field as Oklahoma. They didn't look like they were in the same realm of Oklahoma on that night. And I think that's what fans are like, hey, is this really our ceiling of beating, under 500 teams and not even being competitive with the top 25 teams? And that's not where West Virginia fans, at least, want to be. I don't think the school does either. Nobody wants to be there, but they're expecting more.
Let's get into a little bit of the team themselves. We'll start offensively. The run game has been very strong. I mean, they're one of the top 3 teams in the conference, right, with UC averaging well over 200 yards per game. I was actually watching the Oklahoma game when CJ Donaldson got hurt, and it looked pretty serious at the time. I mean, it made it seem like a high ankle sprain, and he seemed to be in a lot of pain. I'm not gonna. I mean, do you think he'll play? I mean, he's had another great year, 160 carries, 755 yards, 10 touchdowns. I mean, if he can't play, that would probably be a pretty big loss.
Yeah, that would be a big one. The latest update we got, or at least official update we got from Neil Brown, was he did not practice Sunday. They had an emergency. That was a terrible performance. Let's have a Sunday practice. He did not practice at that. And he did not practice Monday during a typical practice. And Neil Brown has said before that he wants guys practicing by Tuesday, mid-Wednesday. Would make some exceptions. You wonder if CJ Donaldson would be one of those exceptions. He being the starting running back and having already played a bunch last year. Does he need practice before then? At least full go? Not so sure. But that's certainly something I would be monitoring. I would put him questionable for Saturday at best.
Yeah. Garrett Green, good touchdown to interception ratio, only been sacked 4 times. I mean, I think that bodes well to his running abilities, almost 500 yards rushing and 8 touchdowns. And also West Virginia has a very strong offensive line. But then you have a 51% completion percentage, and in kind of looking at the receiver stats, it's a lot of, seems like a lot of either nothing or a big play. Is that kind of accurate? Has the passing game just not, complemented the running game like you guys would have thought this year?
I think that's just Green's skill set at the moment. He not somebody who has touch. He is not, overly accurate. He's not going to pick you apart underneath in the intermediate routes. I mean, the best way I could put it was, I believe it was Oklahoma State, and wide receiver E.J. Horton was running like a 10, 12-yard kind of back shoulder route, and Green threw it and literally dislocated his finger on the pass. It went through his fingers and dislocated his finger, the receiver's finger, and went out of bounds. And with that, you see some of the short passes, and Neil Brown had just kind of came out and said, I think we would probably complete 50% of our short passes, so why not just throw them long and complete 50%? And that's kind of been West Virginia's approach, is we're going to run, maybe a couple little short dinkers, but for the most part, going deep when we pass.
That's not great for the Bearcats, Chris.
Oh, yeah?
No, it was much better this past week, but they have been very susceptible to the over the top passing this year. Now, they've made a couple changes in the secondary that even against UCF in the loss was much better. So hopefully things are trending in the right direction. But
But I would say between completions and pass interference, about a 93% hit rate going over the top on the Bearcats for a large portion. I mean,
it certainly felt like
oh my gosh, man. I mean, it's felt like every throw has been like right on the money. The second a guy gets a step on the Cincinnati defense. And then if they don't have a step on the Cincinnati defense, the pass interference flag was almost a certainty. They have mixed things up, and they're working in some younger guys. But if West Virginia's mindset is to go over the top when they do pass, they're going to watch this tape this week, and they're going to have a very good feeling about the passing game on Saturday.
Well, that's certainly the way they've been approaching it so far. Because again, it's complete percentage is going to be bad no matter what. So might as well throw it deep.
If CJ Donaldson can't go or is severely limited, where do they go running the ball without him?
So throughout the year, they've kind of shifted around. Who is that number 2 guy? Who's going to rotate in with Donaldson? But it seems in recent weeks they've settled on true freshman Jaheim White. I believe he's second on the team in rushing now, and a lot of that is because he's just kind of taken over when he's going in for. That started with the UCF game, 9 carries, 8 yards, and then BYU 16 carries, 146 yards. He is the guy that's going to. Donaldson is the hand the ball off, run straight ahead. Don't worry about anything else. Just run straight ahead. You're 6'3", 230 pounds. White, 5'7", 190 pounds. His goal is to get to the edge and try to get outside. So it's 2 very different backs. So I think I'm more curious about who's going to be the big back that kind of goes between the tackles, because Jalen Anderson and Justin Johnson have both fallen deep down the depth chart with the emergence of White.
Is Garrett Green that guy? I mean, if they can't give White those Donaldson carries and he's still more in like that backup type role, do we see more of Garrett Green? Because at least in the first half last week, UC had some trouble stopping Donovan Smith. I mean, he's 6'5", 240. He got loose for a couple of runs. They cleaned it up in the second half. But is more of a Garrett Green designed run probably part of the game plan this week?
I think you can pencil Green in for somewhere between 10 and 15 carries. I don't think they'll go above and beyond that. But if you look at the game logs of when it was, I would say, kind of a standard game or a game that stuck to the script, obviously early in the season, Duquesne, FCS opponent, who cares? Pitt got hurt. BYU, complete blowout, not going to risk it. But every other game other than that, he's been between 10 and 16 carries. And I think that's probably where you're going to see him. I think they're nervous to maybe run him more than that to replace those Donaldson carries, like you were saying, because he's already gotten banged up a couple times. Ooh. And when they have to revert or turn to Nico Marchio, the backup quarterback, the offense is completely different. And they have to kind of like turtle up basically and just hold on for dear life.
This should be a good battle between a good defensive line and a good offensive line. I know Doug Nestor's been banged up as well. do you think he's gonna to be able to go?
He's in the same boat as Donaldson. Did not practice that Sunday thing. Did not practice on Monday. I can say with a certainty he is one of those guys that the staff would allow to sit out until basically walk through on Friday or something.
Ask him like, "Are you good?" And he's like, "I'm good." And they're like, "Okay."
That's it. That's all they need from him.
Yeah. Switching over to defense, I want to ask this question because I don't understand it, so hopefully you can explain it.
Yep.
West Virginia has a potential first-team All-American at corner in Beanie Bishop.
Yep.
Chad, listen to this. 54 tackles, 19 passes defended, 4 interceptions, and yet they are 13th in the Big 12 in pass defense. How is that possible?
Everybody else stinks.
Yeah. Everybody, the opposing teams have figured out, stop throwing to him. It amazes me when they do throw to him. I don't understand why you would when what's going on elsewhere, because he's been outstanding, leads the nation in pass breakups or passes defended so far this season. Malachi Ruffin is the other cornerback, and he's been serviceable. Like, he's not terrible, but there's only he's physically and athletically limited. He's a smaller cornerback. He's a walk-on. He's a former walk-on. He's on scholarship now, but you're talking about a 6th-year guy who's a walk-on, and at times he can get into some mismatches. Safety play has been horrendous this season. Linebackers, while Lee Koba, West Virginia wouldn't be where they are without him because he is outstanding in the run game and he is getting some pass rush. He's horrendous in pass coverage, and teams have kind of taken advantage of that. I believe it was this Oklahoma game. They put him and Jarrett Bartlett, which is like a bandit, kind of a stand-up linebacker, into coverage several times, and it was a disaster. I'm talking like 200 yards of Gabriel's 400 were against those linebackers because he just put them in mismatches, and that's how it happens. It kind of rolls downhill from there.
Was it tight ends? Was it slot guys? There was a little bit of everything.
Oh yeah, no, Drake Stoops, the slot receiver, just had an absolute field day. So, 20 sacks, not kind of middle of the road in the conference, but no one over 2.5, 9 interceptions. Bishop has 4. Where is UC has not really been, they were very efficient last week against Houston, not for a ton of yards in the pass game, and we're pretty good against UCF as well. I mean, West Virginia knows, everybody knows they're going to want to run the ball. They're top 5 running team in the country. But do you think the way to kind of loosen that up is to maybe come out and test the other corner? UC has some big wide receivers, has some tight ends that they'll throw it to. Is that kind of the way that teams have gone about it when they've had success against the defense? Yeah, it's usually been obviously passing, finding guys in that slot, matching them up against the nickel corners or the linebackers, different or some of the safeties. Other things that work when they go to the running game, it's been some of this outside zone stuff, which again, Neil Brown singled out Satterfield and Cincinnati for what they do with that, is that West Virginia's bandits and their edge rushers have a really hard time keeping contained. And the coaching staff has talked about it throughout the year that, hey, they're just not very good at, filling the right gaps and sticking to their assignments. And that's resulted in some
the edge and stuff, forcing runs back inside.
So it's resulted in some big plays for teams that run some of the misdirection or counters and stuff like that. And I mean, Ollie Gordon, God, I think he had like 200 yards in the fourth quarter alone against West Virginia. So,
we experienced that as well. I mean, he had like 200 something. It wasn't all in the fourth quarter, but he had 200 something in the second half of our game. So,
but
you see when 25 minutes of that game and he had like 30 yards, and he still ended up with 275.
Yeah, I think he was like 140 or 150 already entering the fourth, and then had another 150 in the fourth quarter against West Virginia.
And then one of the worst rush defense teams in the country just totally shuts him down last week. So good luck making sense of this conference. I would assume, it's obvious that West Virginia should feel like they should win this game. I mean, UC has not been playing well. They just got their first win since September against an also not playing very well Houston team. But like, it just seems kind of like there's, I don't know, like I said with the first question, now the fan vibes and what the players think can be two totally different things. But coming off the Oklahoma game, is that like if UC jumps out early or hangs with them for a little bit in the beginning of the game, is this kind of a situation where everybody just kind of starts going like, okay, we're actually in for a fight here, and these guys are going to run the ball, and maybe, and we're going to go down to the wire with them. Is that kind of the worry at this point?
Yeah, I don't even think people are like thinking it's going to be a blowout, because in West Virginia's mind, I feel like, at least the fans and people who cover the team, it's almost like, what kind of offense, no matter whether it's a passing offense or a rushing offense, outside zone, inside zone, gap scheme, whatever it is, can West Virginia stop them? And it feels like the answer is no. Doesn't matter what it is. So even though Cincinnati may not be scoring a ton of points or their 60-40 run, doesn't matter. There is this feeling that Cincinnati still could get 20, 30 points. And so now the question is, can West Virginia score on Cincinnati's defense? And then we've seen West Virginia's offense be up and down. So I do think there is some concern among West Virginia fans. But which brings me to something, because I brought it up on our site the other day. I believe I saw, was it Cincinnati was 1-4 in like one-score games or something like that. So
yeah, I mean, they lost at home to UCF by 2, at home to Baylor by 3, lost at home to Miami, Ohio, where in overtime, where if they don't get a short field goal block, not to at the time expire, but would have probably won. I mean, yeah. So it's been an on-running joke of, if I told you that we had 515 yards of offense again and outgained our opponent by 130 yards again, but still told you that we lost again, like, we could write one hell of a novel about the 2023 season. So, I mean, outside of a pretty lousy performance against Iowa State, they have pretty much been in every one. Like, I mean, Oklahoma beat them 20-6, and the defense played great. The offense couldn't do a damn thing, but like, they've pretty much been in to some extent. Second half of Oklahoma State, Ollie Gordon did his thing, but it was 10-7 at halftime. So, it's been a frustrating year, because you look at 3-7 and you're like, this team must stink. And then you have the number 5 rush team in the country, and a lot of areas they've been good. They just have not made those key plays, when those 5-6 key plays, or they've shot themselves in the foot a ton. And they didn't do that last week, and you saw what happened. I mean, with 6 minutes to go in the game, Donovan Smith had thrown for 50 yards. So,
I mean, they were a top 10 run defense in the country until Ollie Gordon happened.
Yeah.
And he dropped them 30-something spots by himself.
And then RJ Harvey got him for almost 200, and that's kind of messed up. But yeah, they were right around 100 yards a game rush defense for the better part of the season.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at. I was like, I feel like Cincinnati's better than the 3-7, and some of the stats, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, hey, like you just mentioned with the rushing stats, I was like, I felt like they were better than that, and those two games kind of throw things off. But yeah, so I'm expecting a close game. I'm expecting a game between these two teams like in the low 20s again. And a fast one too, hopefully, for those of us trying to get out on Saturday night.
If both teams are going to be committed to the run, I would, it will hopefully.
2 of the top 10 in time of possession, I believe, or top 11 in the country. It's kind of wild.
I mean, that was the other thing early in the season. Cincinnati was it was like 37-23 every week.
Well, I mean, what they lost? I forget which game it was. They lost one game where they ran 91 plays. They lost to Miami, Ohio, where they almost ran twice as many plays. I think it was 94-57 or something. Like, so just
BYU, they destroyed BYU in plays. Like, it was almost comical how many more plays they ran than BYU, and still lost.
Yeah, and still lost. So, but yeah, it's been a maddening, frustrating year. But we'll see. I mean, I think there are two teams that do a lot of the same things well and do a lot of the same things poorly. So it'll be another one of those who forces turnovers, who commits a bad penalty, who picks up a 4th and short to keep a drive alive type of situation.
Who goes up a 60-yard punt return, or who gets an interception and then fumbles it 20 yards later, trying to
run it back for a
way into the
touchdown.
end zone.
Yeah, we had one of those
It's been
last
a weird
week.
year, Chris.
So
Yep.
Well, they couldn't. They hadn't had a turnover in like a month, and then they get a turnover. The guy runs 20 yards and fumbles it because he's, dancing like Deion Sanders trying to find a lane.
Oh,
And you almost couldn't see it on TV, like live.
Oh, I saw it right away.
At the Holy Grail, it was difficult to see because we're all going, like, the defense stayed on the field. We're all looking at each other going, what's happening? What just happened?
Like,
And Houston had the ball, and we're like, no.
But I know the spots. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say it would very much behoove Neil Brown if he might still be in trouble at 8-4. You can't lose to the last place team in the conference, right?
Yeah, I think 8-4 is fine. But yeah,
there's still going to be noise at 8-4.
Yeah, I think 8-4. There's still people. Well, the other variable here, for those not familiar, but Jimbo Fisher getting fired at Texas A&M. He's from West Virginia. He's from the state of West Virginia, and he went on the radio.
Bring him home, Chris.
Yeah,
bring him home.
That's what everybody wants. And he went out and said something. He was being interviewed by the local news station in Clarksburg, where he's from, and somebody said something to him about, hey, one day, did you ever think, coming home, because talk about all these coaches from West Virginia. I mean, Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, all these guys that end up somewhere else. And he was like, I'd love to come back home and coach or something like that. And that was it. That just
Rich Rod to be the OC.
There you go.
Bring Jimbo home. Yeah, it's one of those things. Like, even if they win the last two games, I understand what you're saying. It's like, where you're 8-4, but you feel like where's the momentum for next year?
Right.
And it's usually it's if UC did something like that, we'd go, well, it's first year in the Big 12. Yeah, we didn't really beat anybody that we think is any good, but there was a lot of stuff going on, and they still had a pretty decent year. Where you guys are probably like, it's his whatever year, and we won games, but you kind of look at it and you're like, there weren't any where we're like, oh yeah, we beat a team we weren't supposed to beat, or stuff like that, and what does that mean going into next season?
Yep, year 5, and I think if he finishes 8-4, he's one game over 500, maybe, for his 5 years. And as I mentioned to Mike, who I work with, I said, how many of the 65 to 70 Power 5 teams are keeping a coach at 500 after 5 years? Like 4 of them, like, maybe Vanderbilt or something like that. Most schools are not keeping a 500 coach after 5 years.
You've kind of shown what your program is.
Right.
So I know all the spots because my brother went to school there, and I've been there several times. I was at the first ever game you guys sold beer against LSU with the Honey Badger. That was a time.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we're going to have a lot of UC fans there. We're excited. It's like the first true conference road game we can drive to since the Big East days. No one was really driving to Memphis or Temple or ECU for those stellar performances. So what's the pregame like? What's the tailgate scene like? Where should people go to check out and everything now that we have I won't call it a rivalry. I mean, UC's 3-16 in their career against West Virginia. We haven't played in quite some time, but it's just nice to have a regional team again. But what should everybody check out when they go to Morgantown?
Well, you told me you're staying at the Residence Inn right across from the field, so you got the primo spot to just go right across the street to the hospital parking lot with the tailgating. Because for those who don't know, right next to the football field is the hospital, and they share a parking lot, and it is set up for all the tailgating you could possibly imagine. Right down the road, small place, but I love it.
The hospital.
I'm still waiting on them to sponsor, but Varsity Club, excellent food, big beers, big fishbowl beers. Really enjoy that place. Mario's Fishbowl around the corner. Again, I don't know why I keep thinking all the places that have the big fishbowl beers, but those are the first ones that come
I'm
to mind.
sensing a trend.
I know,
Yes.
I know. We'll, and it's been a minute, obviously, but I know we'll be hopping into Sports Page and Kegler's.
Oh yeah, Kegler's is a fan favorite.
So a lot of good spots in Morgantown. Looks like the weather's going to be halfway decent Saturday. Not going to complain about a game in the 50s in Morgantown in the middle of November. That's for sure.
Yep.
That was the third host of this podcast.
Yeah.
Pickle.
My cat.
Pickle, did Pickle have any questions?
Oh, I've been told that my brother says a new bar called Mountain Mamas.
Ooh.
So guess we'll be checking that one out too.
Try to get them on a sponsor too for you guys.
Yeah.
Tell your brother to make it happen.
Yeah. But thank you for joining us. Tell everybody where they
Well, and hold on real quick.
Oh, my bad.
Basketball.
Oh.
We got him here. How
do we have to talk about basketball?
Okay, never mind. We'll get him out of here, Dave.
Yeah,
go ahead.
You guys are going through the same crap we are with the NCAA, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, with Raekwon Battle's waiver being denied, still under appeal, still waiting somehow. Kirk Risa being suspended for 9 games for something that happened at Arizona. That's not great. And, obviously with the departures after the Huggins thing and him being fired and then everybody being able to leave, but no one being able to enter the portal for West Virginia to get back, has put them with 8 scholarship players at the moment with, to be kind of blunt about it, 2 of those 8 probably shouldn't
be playing in the Big 12.
Yeah, so really 6 scholarship players they're playing with right now, and they showed it in that loss to Monmouth the other night. 6 players played all but I think 9 minutes. Two other guys, the 7th and 8th guy played like 4 minutes and 3 minutes or something like that. So it's bad.
Monmouth's one of those games that you wish you didn't schedule if you find yourself in a situation like that.
Absolutely.
Like they might not be great, but they're always good enough to beat you in November if you don't have your shit together.
Yeah.
So,
well,
a lot of people here still care about what happens there because of Bob. So,
he's still coming to the games.
Hey, if he keeps trying hard enough, maybe eventually he'll get that job back.
And DeMar.
and DJ, of course. DJ's awesome. DJ's a friend of the program. We love DJ dearly.
Yeah.
But Bob looks good.
Yeah, he was here for Corey Blunt's UC Hall of Fame induction. He looks like he's lost a couple lbs.
Yeah.
So he's lost a human. Maybe he's just not carrying around the recycling anymore.
All that recycling, yeah.
He had recycling in his pockets at all time, and we just didn't know it.
He needs to cut
recycler.
Like if he truly had a great sense of humor, he would cut some commercial for like whatever the the sanitation garbage recycling company in Morgantown was.
Well, hey, you know what? He's doing his own podcast now, so maybe he'll have to.
I'm sure that's just a great listen.
Well, so far, I was a little nervous about it because there is this sense of, all right, everybody hopes he gets the help that he needs and gets everything figured out, but it's like, hey, you're kind of hovering over the program. They're trying to move on, get Josh Eilert going, get this team going, and he's showing up to all the games. He's doing a podcast talking about everything. So there's a little bit of sense of that, but so far the podcast has been, hey, I screwed up. This is what happened. A little different from the story that was out there, but I screwed up and hoping to get things right. So I hope he figures it all out.
I thought I was in Ohio, but I was really in Pennsylvania. It happens. We've all been there.
Yeah, I mean, I've known the guy. He wouldn't know who I was. He would know who some of my family members are. But got some great stories. If we ever, if you ever run into us this weekend after the game, and we can certainly tell some. But you guys have a ton of coverage over on your site for football, basketball, everything. Tell everybody like where they can find the site, Twitter, all the stuff to stay in lock for this weekend's game.
Yep. Which way am I leaning? There we go. Earsports.com. Find us over there. Twitter at CM Anderson 247. Yeah, lots of coverage of this upcoming football game and ongoing coverage of basketball season.
All right, man. We'll have you back on when it's time to get things fired up in hoops, and it's safe to say Cincinnati fans are a little concerned looking at you when you first get that first Big 12 basketball. The football schedule, you're like, everybody feels like, and we've seen it, everybody feels like they can beat everybody in this football conference. You get the basketball schedule laid out in front of you, and you're kind of like, oh,
yeah,
this isn't fun.
There's no more trips to Tulsa.
Yeah. That was what Huggins used to say was the big difference. You know, in the
Lubbock
old Big East.
Lubbock is hard.
Yeah, in the old Big East, he would say, "Oh, you know, you got to play USF or you know whoever was terrible at basketball that year."
St. John's.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in the Big 12 ever.
You ever been in Lubbock? It's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. All right, man. We appreciate it. We will talk soon. Thanks, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Mountaineers. The rivalry, or this is going to be a rivalry.
Well, I mean, yes. Hopefully that's the case, and the teams, play well and kind of do a back and forth thing. I mean, obviously, I don't think either fan base really looks at it like that right now. One, because they've obviously had UC's number from a long time ago, and two, I haven't even looked, but I mean, we haven't played each other since at least 2013, something like that.
Yeah, I guess 13 was the first year in the American.
So 10 years ish. So no, I think that's why I said I think we're all just happy to be able to go to this game, and have a semi-close conference road trip that we do have a bit of history against.
Yeah. Yes, the thing is 16-3, but West Virginia was in a much better situation than Cincinnati.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean,
the majority of their history, but in the last 6 games they played, there's a lot of good games in there, and
bunch of good.
That's probably all 3 Cincinnati wins, isn't it? Or at least
one of the games I always remember, and I think UC even lost, but it was kind of one of those first nipper games where you could when Pat White was the quarterback and they won, and it was a fairly back and forth.
Wasn't that right after the Rutgers upset?
I don't think so, because it might have been, but Pat was there when BK was here, because remember we won the game there. Yeah. But it was just it was one of those first atmospheres at Nippert that felt like it does now, where it was we're we finally care about football, and these guys care about football, and it was a big crowd and a good game. I remember it was a night game, and there's some, obviously the game at West Virginia, Marty takes the opening kickoff back for a touchdown. We get out to a big lead. They come back, almost win it in overtime, almost win it in regulation, goes to overtime. D-Bird had an amazing tackle on Pat White that Terrell Bird, had an amazing tackle on Pat White that basically won the game. And then Tony hits Kazim Ali for the winning touchdown. That was a wild game.
You're thinking of 07
at home. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, 28-23.
Yeah.
West Virginia won. UC was it was 28-10, and then UC scored 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Marcus Barnett, Bones, from Ben Mock, and then Gladhar with 2:26 left, and then I'm guessing they missed the onside kick to
it was there's been some, towards the end of that, obviously there were some good fun games. So but no, I'm excited. I love going to college games. I love going to other places. But yeah, it was funny. It's just a weird temperature check. I'm
not Indianapolis.
Well, yes, because this is on campus and a conference game. it's just a weird temperature check of like, you thought you were going to maybe fire the guy, and now they're 6-4, and I get on their board, and there's a thread about attendance, and like people are talking about 30,000, 35,000. They'll announce it at 40,000. They'll never announce it lower than 40, but there's not going to be anybody there. And I guess they're honoring Don Nealon along with it being senior day. So it's just kind of some odd fan vibes. I have no idea what the player and coach mentality is right now, but the fans, as Chris said, they're certainly not necessarily feeling the maybe better than expected record.
Yeah, I mean, I get it that maybe it's not against a great, like the schedule didn't turn out to be what you thought on the teams that you beat, but my God, they thought they were going to fire their coach in like 3 games into the season.
Right.
And they got a chance to go 8-4, and they're still talking about getting rid of him.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that game, Geoffrey was, everybody left. All the West Virginia fans left.
Oh, the game when they came back.
Yeah,
oh yeah. We were in our seats for the first half, and then I got to go
on
down
my birthday.
Got to go down on the sidelines for the second half and overtime. And yeah, because my brother was in school and they all took off, and that was I think they used to have a pass out rule. So like at halftime you could leave, go to the blue lot right by the stadium by the hospital, drink, and then come back in whenever you wanted. And then once they started selling beer, they stopped it. But yeah, all the students left. I mean, tons of people left, and then they're all trying to rush back in, like as they're, trying to tie the game and then go into overtime.
What hasn't McAfee said that was going to be the greatest night of his life?
Yeah, if he made that kick at the end of regulation.
Yeah, that was going to be the greatest night of his life, and then they lost, and it was one of the worst. That was my birthday. We had a birthday party at my house, and like the mood went from like we kind of just stopped paying attention, right? Like the game was still on, we were still watching it, but like it wasn't like everybody was
right. It wasn't a back and forth like
right.
We're totally locked in, and then you turn around, and you're like, oh my God, like this game's close.
Are we going to overtime? What just happened?
Mm-hmm.
I know 9 beers, but I think I was that drunk. This game is drunker than me.
Yep.
But yeah. All right. We'll lock that up with a Turtles Brew timestamp. Turtles Brew is your favorite alcoholic beverage. It is hold on a second. I had like 3 things pulled up. My bad. 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, bourbon-infused sweet tea. It's got lemonade tea, cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla. There's over 100 locations now in Ohio, including Cincinnati, Cleveland, Columbus, Akron. So visit turtlesbrew.com for more information and locations. And Dave, we have taken a look at this before, but I just want to get so everybody knows when they see it, when you're in the store, you're not looking for the milk jug anymore. This is what you're looking for.
It's very
for those bad boys.
Very fancy.
I mean, I love the logo on them.
Maybe dare I say too fancy.
Well, those look like plastic bottles you can easily reuse for things around the house. Or just to put your bourbon in so your kids think it's tea and you hide it from them. Yeah,
but then if the kids think it's tea, then they might drink it.
Well, that's daddy's tea. You're not allowed to have daddy's tea. So there you go. That's a Turtles Brew time stamp from our good friends at Turtles Brew, which I think if they can get that thing into West Virginia.
Oh, buddy.
That might be the favorite beverage in the whole state of
West Virginia and Kentucky could get going real big here.
I mean, they love sweet tea and they love bourbon. If you allow them to mix the two and you can just buy it in store, one of them fancy bottles. Although in Kentucky, you might be best, and West Virginia, you might be best selling in the milk cartons.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. So I mean, maybe too fancy. keep them fancy bottles for us high class Ohioans.
In West Virginia, we're still selling it to you in the half-gallon milk jugs.
Yeah.
Oh, that's outstanding. All right. I don't know anything from the Houston game you want to.
Well, do you want to put a bow on, kind of what we think for West Virginia, and then since we just had Chris on, and then
Sure
go back?
Sure.
I mean,
yeah,
it's kind of a lot like last week. I mean, can you see play another pretty clean game on the road? I have some worry about Garrett Green and his running because of what we saw with Donovan Smith, but is it a better thing that you're kind of facing that for really with John Rice Plumlee involved as well, kind of a third week in a row? Do you?
But I think last week, Dave, they were fine with it. Like, if that's the only yards they're going to get, okay.
Yeah, but there were still some bad, especially in the first half.
Yeah,
there were still some just bad. There was his big run to the left. I mean, we ended up with 4 defensive linemen to the wrong side of the center and 1 guy on the other side, and it just left a massive, massive hole. I mean, that part of it has to be cleaned up.
They've been susceptible to letting quarterbacks out the front door all season.
Right. So, but seeing that last week and seeing them clean it up a bit in the second half, is that a good omen? Because you can say, like, here's what we did wrong, here's what we did right in the second half. We're going to try to keep those same principles. Like, if he's a 50% passer and can't really complete much in the short to intermediate, maybe you just kind of mush rush and make him throw. When he throws, like, make him throw.
Yeah.
Don't pin your ears back and.
Yeah, but don't give him time to stand back there and throw deep, Dave. Damn it.
Well, I mean, but yes, but I mean, I think I just would say, like, I would kind of make him beat you.
Yeah, it's fair.
In a passing sense, and then I think can the offensive pass game that has been much better in the second half, or sorry, not the last 2 games.
Yeah.
And, been efficient, been much better, but can they exploit, everybody in the secondary outside of Beanie Bishop? Chris mentioned the linebackers and the safeties. Can Braden Smith have another big game?
Shimon Mateer.
Can they get Shimon matched up on those guys? Can they be a little more explosive with whoever is opposite of Beanie Bishop?
Yeah.
UC doesn't really have a receiver that you're going to say you're going to, like, travel with. So
Henderson.
They're not going to travel the corner with him, though.
But, I mean, if there was one, it would be him.
Right. But, I mean, like, can you get him matched up on a guy that Chris said is undersized, is a former walk-on? Like, UC has some bigger receivers, bigger targets. So can they be a little more explosive in that regard? I think it's going to be a very similar scoring game to the Houston game. I would be surprised in a traditional sense, unless some random thing happened. I'd be surprised if either team got to 30.
So maybe. I don't know. I don't rule anything out when watching this team.
No, but, both, like we said, both teams are going to want to run. Both teams are big on time of possession. So, like, unless, one just plays significantly better than the other. I mean, UC could have easily got to 30 last week.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. But, I think we're in for the same type of game we saw last week. Fairly low scoring, close game. I want to pick UC, but we're still kind of in that point. Like, okay, you had that good game.
Let's see you do it again.
Can you back it up again? Can you have a very clean performance 2 weeks in a row on the road?
Yeah. Now, I mean, Dante talked about like preferring to play on the road because you kind of feel like your back's against the wall and, everybody's screaming at you. And there's a different level of screaming at you that you get in Morgantown than you get.
Well, I mean, the way it sounds,
pretty much anywhere else.
They might be screaming at their own team.
If Cincinnati gets up early, and that's going to be the key, Dave. Like this team just looked completely different when they were able to be in front. It was night and day.
Well, yeah.
They didn't look like they were playing stressed. They didn't look like they didn't give them a chance. Didn't give them a chance to be in that situation where they like slumped their shoulders and kind of got down on themselves.
Their offensive game plan is built to be
running the ball
from ahead. Right. So
right.
So yeah, I mean, I think. I think I'm going to go like West Virginia 24, UC 21.
I was thinking more 28-24, but we're in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
I'm worried if like they have decided on offense, like we're not going to throw the short stuff. We're just going to try to chuck it deep and see what works.
Yeah. I mean, UC's been
better.
I would
Houston
say they
did not try to go over the top.
I would say they've been significantly better.
But Houston did not try at all to like we didn't see how they were on deep stuff.
They tried it one time, it got intercepted.
Right. That's so I mean, I have a fear of teams that have decided we're just going to throw it deep anyway before they get to this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they don't have C.J. Donaldson, that's a massive, massive miss.
Yes, I would agree, Dave. If they don't have their best player,
I think you're less. You could play it maybe a little bit different in the pass game if he's not there.
Yeah,
you can play the third and shorts a little bit different because on 3rd and 4. Where they would normally probably give it to him. And, like Chris said, he's 6'3", 230. Like, just go bang your way to 4 yards. Are they going to feel like they have to either run Garrett Green or potentially try to throw?
Right.
And so, UC has shown they've been okay on the short stuff. I mean, they did a great job this past week.
Yeah.
Recognizing routes, breaking on routes, making a lot of really good open field tackles. So, we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, Johnny, I love you, but run the ball and we can get the win. They're a top 10 rushing offense.
I mean, we've ran the ball all year.
They have embraced that identity all year.
They got 3 of them.
They are 3-7. I mean, it's not like they've thrown the ball 45 times a game. They're not the Bengals, who just don't believe
or allergic to running the ball.
Right. Like, no, this is a team that's running the ball almost as much as you can run the ball. And they, it hasn't been enough far more often than not.
Yeah. You throw the ball to score, you run the ball to win.
Yeah. And Emery's had his best 2 games, I think, the last 2 weeks.
Oh, we're not going to count EKU, but yes.
No, that's
absolutely. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, maybe Pitt, but
he had a solid game.
Bad second half.
It wasn't. I wouldn't say it was as good as these last 2.
Yeah. So, and that's another thing with the transfer portal. Guess what? Sometimes with the quarterback that's new to everything, and with a new coach and a new system, it takes a while to figure everything out and get comfortable. Unfortunately, it feels like he's getting comfortable at maybe the wrong time.
It's too late.
I mean, the funny thing is, Dave, like, if he'd have played this way early in the season, there wouldn't have been any calls for Emory Jones's head. it would have been they're doing everything they can with the quarterback that they have. Brian says we run the ball so well that we call timeout before the half just to run it again.
Yeah.
Oh boy, just in case you might break one of those 50-yarders.
Yep.
At the end of the half for a touchdown. Houston, I don't think we need to spend a whole lot of time on it, but
no, the thing I will say that I've kind of been thinking about, I mean, obviously we covered it Sunday morning, you guys have covered it, is, I don't know how much it's worth. But it's not worth nothing. That it does not seem, and there's clearly been some rocky moments along the way. I mean, Coach Satterfield is I mean, you guys know, if you listen to me talk at all, like, I am very appreciative of the way that he handles his public comments. We ask for honesty, and he's, I mean, that was the thing we always questioned going into the year. Like, it's very easy to be honest in April and August, but during the season, will you be as forthright as you were in the offseason, or will you turn into coach speak, that everybody else is? And he hasn't, and I appreciate that. And, he's talked about some of the issues, and we know there's been meetings and hard practices, and it's certainly, if you've lost 7 games in a row and you go on the road against another pretty, whatever team in a stadium half full, and you still got juice, and you still got guys playing hard, and you still have guys that are committed, it certainly doesn't feel like there's any notion of a lost locker room or of a large faction of older players who are not really giving their all because this guy didn't recruit me and we stink and I only got 3 games left in my career, so who gives a shit? Like, I'm sure there's one of those guys or 2 of those guys. Like, there's 100 and something guys. Like, that's just human nature.
Yeah.
But it certainly doesn't seem from the outside that has been a thing that has kind of taken over this team. I mean, we've talked about it enough. They're not very good. They've made a ton of mistakes. But at least for one game, in a situation that was probably a little hard to get up for, they played well. They brought it. There was energy. Guys seem like they're still involved and committed to the scheme and to the coaches. And when you're not having a good year, that's, not all you can ask for, but it certainly portends potential success next year versus half these guys quit on me. We got to figure out who we can actually win with. We're going to have to do a whole nother roster, rebuild next year because, all these sophomores and juniors that Fickle and those guys recruited, they're not buying in, and we got to get them, it doesn't seem like that is a thing that's happened. And that is encouraging. And just playing it wasn't an easy game by any stretch, but like
it was a complete game, though.
There were very few parts where you're just like, I cannot believe this is still happening, or I cannot believe we're doing the same stuff that we were doing against Miami and BYU and Iowa State 2 months ago.
And that's the frustrating. Like, you watch BYU and Baylor.
They stink.
Awful.
BYU stinks. Baylor stinks. Like, no business losing those 2 games.
Right. And we'd be having a different conversation if this team had 5 wins going into the last 2.
Yeah.
Like, the whole, and Miami, who I guess is good. They're playing for the MAC East Division Championship tonight. But
it's been a weird year.
Yeah.
We talked about going into the season. How many of those toss-up games are you going to win?
None. One. They've won one. Well, I guess Pitt 2, but
we talked about how there were like 6 or 7 of them.
Right.
Maybe more.
No, yeah, it ended up being more.
Yeah.
And you're probably going to get 2 more depending on Kansas's quarterback situation. You're getting a toss-up game here. West Virginia's at home and favored by 4.
I think that opened at 4. I think it's jumped all the way up to like 7. I don't know if it's come down.
Really? That far?
It was when I saw it yesterday. Now I don't know if it's come back down or if it will come back down, but either way, it's based on the way the kind of two teams are playing. I would still put it in that
Coin flip.
If you're less than a touchdown favorite or underdog, I mean, either team can win. I mean, You're talking about a 55 to 60, 40 split type of thing.
Yeah. So we did have a commitment today. The 25 class is underway with
UC is 6.5 point underdogs right now.
Wow, it jumped up quite a bit. Kamuri Smith gives his pledge today to the Bearcats from Dayton Wayne, somewhere that was a familiar friend of the Bearcats during the Marcus Freeman era, but they do have Evan Tengestal on the roster now. They get Smith. You have watched a bunch of tape on him. I will let you give your opinion there.
I have. I have a very good friend that is a defensive coach that has played them and said absolutely looks the part. I think this is, we're talking 6'5". I've seen 205. I've seen 215. I think he is at this point, and we also have to just keep in mind these are high school juniors who knows how young they are. A lot of development still left. But the things I like the most, 2 things stand out. Very willing blocker, which I'm not sure how much you get from that type of guy in high school because they're probably using him as a tight end / wide receiver. But he is physical. He will engage. He will fight. He blocks in the run game and the pass game. So that is, from a move tight end standpoint, and a guy that I don't see him as just like an out wide tight end or a pass catching tight end. Like I think he can develop into both. But the other thing that really jumps out is he is an easy catcher. Like there were several plays that I saw where he's 10, 15, 20 yards downfield, whether it's across the middle, whether it's an out route, and he is, hands up, away from his body, easy catch, not catching stuff against his chest, not double catching stuff. He is not currently rated by 247, but with his size and athletic ability, and, he's got obviously committed to UC. He had, I believe, a Kentucky offer, Pitt, Purdue, Rutgers. Like, I have a hard time not seeing him in, like, the Ohio top 30, top 40 at the worst.
Right.
I think there's a lot to like. I think this staff will start seeing it in this class. I think they want to lean more into the prototypes in positions and maybe less of the try hard overachiever type. I mean, you're going to need those.
Well, important to remember, Dave, I think that there's some NFL blood in this recruiting staff.
Right.
And the NFL loves prototype. Like they don't like outliers. They want guys that look like they're some quote unquote supposed to look like, right?
Right. You don't see a lot of 6'2" tight ends because a lot of 6'2" tight ends don't make it in the NFL, or, just name the position,
Right.
Defensive ends that aren't at least 6'4", 6'5" with arms that are past a certain length, there's much more cutoffs and hard stops on guys in the NFL than there is in college.
Yeah. And that's not to say that they won't have outliers.
No, because look it up.
It's college.
Ivan
You're
Pace.
not recruiting NFL guys.
No. we're still going to be a developmental program, but I think you can look at guys that fit those molds more. I think that's what they're going to do, but that maybe they're young to the sport, or they just aren't in a position to be uber productive, but they have the measurables and the traits that you say, well, I mean, this guy's a great athlete. He's tall,
Right.
he's long, but he's not, in their offense, maybe they don't utilize him like we would utilize him, but we still see the development there, and we want a guy like that to go along with probably more of a traditional inline Michael Marish type tight end.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll use this as the comp. Like, his game would fit more in like the Dalton Kincaid mode, and then I think like in this recruiting class, like the Devin Zersky, or however you say his last name, fits more in like the Michael Mayer mode. Like, yes, you can spread him out, but this guy can also line up next to the tackle and block somebody's ass off, and also run those inside routes.
Yeah, like I think that's a thing that you don't really think about when you think of great tight ends. Like, it's important to have a guy that can run those because they get lost. Like, the defense accounts for them as they show that they're going to be a blocker because they do so much blocking. And then next thing you know, they release and they cut over the middle or they cut to the outside. And the defense lost accountability on that guy, lost contain on a guy that they kind of wrote off that, okay, he's staying in the block. And now, 2.5 seconds into the play, he's running free over the middle. Stuff like that you get from those type of guys that, yes, it's great to have a Josh Wiley that can line up at any of the 4 or 5, like whatever spots you want to call it, as a wide receiver. But there are advantages to having a guy that can do a little bit of both. And based on reading tea leaves, reading tweets, we're not done with the start of the 25 class.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how that plays out here over the next couple days.
Yeah.
And for the Cincinnati has to recruit Ohio crowd, they should be happy. Although they're not close enough, Dave. They're not close enough.
What's not close enough?
Dayton Wayne is not in Cincinnati, Dave.
Okay. I mean, believe me, and I've intimated this. I don't like to. I refrain from talking about specific guys this
I know
kind of early in the process, but whether it's a concerted effort or just a random happenstance effort, there are, I think, several more Ohio kids in the top 50 in the state that they would love to have, that they are actively recruiting.
Yeah.
For the 2025 class.
And look, like it's going to take a little bit of time, but guess what? These guys aren't stupid. They know there's a bunch of good football players in Ohio.
Yeah.
Like, they want to get some of them. You just got to do the work and build the relationships. And
let's be honest. If you're assessing this year's team, I think it's fair to say for the future, we need some higher levels of athletic ability and pure speed at the wide receiver and defensive back position. And those guys just aren't in Ohio.
There's not a lot of Trey Tuckers and Tyler Scotts in Ohio.
There's a handful. I mean, there's one in Cincinnati that I know they like a lot, but so do a lot of other teams.
Yeah.
But you're going to go to Florida. You're going to go to Georgia. You're going to go to South Carolina for those
just more of those guys.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think they are, if anything can be drawn from 2025 recruiting right now and who's getting the offers and things of that nature, I would say compared to 2024, much more of a concerted effort. Maybe it's just a better class. You've had more time to build the relationship. Targeting Ohio guys, And then there has obviously been a clear emphasis on recruiting offensive linemen and specifically tackles with prototypical tackle size. And then there's been a very concerted effort to recruit defensive players, whether it's linebacker or DB, with speed. Now, we'll see what happens. There is over a year to go before we're talking about the 2025 class. We haven't even signed the 2024 class. But so obviously there is a lot of time to go. But that is what I've seen based on who they've, extended offers to.
And for the recruitniks out there, we are working on, I haven't told Dave this yet, I don't even think.
Yes, you have.
Sometime here very soon, we will have Zach Grant on this podcast. And to get
it will be my sole mission to see how many secondary violations he can commit.
Maybe we'll have him on the BBP.
That's a bad idea.
No, it's not, because those guys don't know what a secondary violation is. You do.
Oh, they
You
don't.
do.
They do. They do.
No, they don't. No, they don't. You think Royer knows what a secondary violation is?
That's true. He might not. I give Aaron and Brett more credit than that.
I think they know what they think should be secondary violations. It doesn't mean they know the very specific rules.
Hey, it's like court, Your Honor. He's leading my client. That's a leading question. Strike that from the record.
Well, when we were trying to set up going back and forth on dates, I was like, maybe we should do it after signing day, so the kids have signed.
And they can actually talk about them.
Talk about
them.
I
mean that would be much better. Yeah, I would certainly prefer that than having a conversation, 30-minute conversation, just
about things we're not allowed to talk about.
Draped in hidden messages and innuendos. I mean, that's no fun.
As Aaron would know, it'd be like a Taylor Swift album. There would just be Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that would be. I mean, that was one of the very first things I talked to you about when they brought these guys on was seeing the availability of talking to one of those guys. Obviously, preferably Zach. He kind of runs the show there and get an idea of what his role is.
That's happening. It's just a matter of when. At this point. So we will have that.
I mean, why not have him on the night of signing day? Signing day is on Wednesdays.
Yeah, that's a possibility. It's definitely a possibility. All right. You got anything else on football?
I don't think so.
Well, then why don't we timestamp it? That timestamp brought to you by Turtles Brew. 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free, 6% ABV, bourbon-infused sweet tea. Cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla, strawberry mint, lemonade tea. Over 100 locations now in Ohio. Visit turtlesbrew.com for more information and locations. A portion of the proceeds go to Save the Sea Turtles. They are in Toledo and Columbus and Cleveland, as well as here in Cincinnati. Dave, we have seen 2 more Bearcats basketball games. One of those games, Vic, I think in both of those games, Vic is not rocking a headband anymore.
It seems to have helped, so he should stay
in the
off
game
the
Sunday. It absolutely did.
Neither is Odie.
Yeah, so the headband count is way down, Dave.
This is frustrating.
I know you were excited. Like that was.
Yeah.
There was nothing you were more excited about at the start of the season.
It really wasn't. Honestly, it's the first tweet I sent out about the basketball season.
I know. That's why I said it. It was your driving force on your excitement level for this basketball season was the headband count.
Yeah.
But maybe as they find a rhythm, the headbands will come back. But at the beginning, it's just the clout of wearing the headband with the Jumpman on it, right?
Yeah.
And now they're like, I don't want to wear a headband. It doesn't feel good. any additional like takeaways after you've gotten to see a couple more games as the sample size is growing?
I missed the second half of the game on Sunday. I was obviously watching the Bengals, which seemed like I missed the better of the second half. I wasn't really thrilled with the first half of that game.
They play. I mean, Eastern Washington's pretty good. I think Eastern Washington is the best of those three teams, and we're finding out.
Better than UIC?
Yeah, I think so.
They
just had a tough go of their schedule.
It felt like a 12 o'clock a Sunday early season game,
especially first half. Like the first
coming
5 to 7 minutes,
Friday night game. It was sloppy. Yeah. I mean, it was. I would say I continue to be encouraged with Day and Jizzle.
Yes, I don't know how if that's not your take, you don't know ball. That the kids say that now. That's a big thing now. You don't know ball.
I don't know. I have one, and he doesn't really know what basketball is yet, so he's not saying it, and I don't really associate myself with.
Next time I see him, I'm going to teach him that if you're watching a game with Dad and he says something, what you need to say to him is, "You don't know ball, Dad."
I mean, after the last time we talked, you might not be around because he was going to crush you with a car, and
he was. Yeah, he was hell bent on killing me.
Yeah. But competition aside, you still have two guys that have never played at this level, and one that never played college. Period. One at junior college, and I mean, has there really been a moment? You've obviously watched much more than I have, but it doesn't seem like there's really been a moment where, to the naked eye, that they look out of place. They look like they can't handle this. Now, certainly the competition's going to ratchet up a shit ton.
Sure.
But so should hopefully their progression in their own game.
I think what you're getting at, and what I would absolutely agree with, is nothing has seemed too big. Like yes, Jizzle has had some freshman stuff, like some losing his place in off-ball rotations, and maybe committing a silly turnover, which have been few and far between, but neither of them have had the bright lights on and seem like they're too big.
Well, the offseason conversation was, do they need a transfer portal point guard?
No.
And I don't think so. And that, there's going to be games where one or both of them are bad, but that's just life. I mean, you have veteran teams at the beginning.
They could have 1,000 starts between them, and there could be games where the point guard
up until the second half of the Duke game last night, Michigan State was 4 for 44 from 3.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of guards who have played a lot of minutes. I mean, there's going to be games where they don't play well. But to this point, I think they have been those two, I think. I mean, you could tell me I'm wrong. I think they've been the two most consistent players on the team.
CJ's been really consistent.
John Newman, maybe. John
Newman's been really consistent.
But I mean, what you're talking about, two guys that have not really played. Like, John Newman's an older guy. CJ's an older guy. These are two guys.
Well, you asked me the question. I'm just answering it.
The ball in their hand a ton. I just think that shows how much, that they're in that conversation.
Yeah.
Says a lot, because the ball's in their hands a ton, and they're counted on to run an offense, get people where they're supposed to be, not turn the ball over, and I feel like they have done, probably more than could have possibly been expected to this point.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron and I talked about this last night when when Wes basically said he wasn't, Keegan asked him if he was surprised at how well Jizzle has kind of handled this transition. And the answer I didn't think he worded it perfectly, but the answer was basically, I see him every day in practice, so this is what I expect from him.
Right. It was no, because this is what I know he can do.
Right. Not no, I'm not.
No, he hasn't. It's no, he's doing what I thought he could do.
Right.
So I'm not surprised.
I just think it changes the whole conversation about this team if you're not worried about point guard because we were, rightfully so. They didn't have a point guard. And when they did have point guards, there was two guys that had never dribbled a ball in a Division I game. And watching those two dudes, it just doesn't feel like they get bright-eyed, that they get like flustered or shook.
Well, it doesn't. It also, again, 3 games, lower level competition, but it doesn't feel like we're gonna get into some moments of like both of them going through prolonged stretches of poor play at the same time.
Yeah.
Like I feel like one more than the other, but maybe at time, but like you can probably count on them to be fairly consistent throughout the season. And you're not going to go like a week where you're like, man, both of these guys are really struggling, whether it's defensively, turning the ball over, shooting, whatever it might be. Like it feels like neither of them are going to sit in long periods of rough patches.
Yeah. I would also say the 3-point shooting from both has been solid, and it's been solid for a reason. They're taking good shots. They're taking good threes. Like they're not just between the legs, step back, take a three just because I feel like I haven't shot in a couple minutes.
If they could shoot the three, if both of them could shoot the three like Harris does for Kansas, I think we would all be very happy. Like he is not a high volume shooter. He is almost reluctant to shoot, but he takes very good shots and he shoots a good percentage for the most part.
He made like 7 in a row at the end of last night, didn't he? It felt like.
Yeah, but like he doesn't hunt his shot.
They were good looks.
He's like, when it's my time and when I'm open, I'm going to shoot it. But if it's not, I don't feel like I have to get it up because I haven't gotten one up in 7 minutes or something.
And that can be a good part of having a guy where the 3-point shot is not like top of his scouting report.
Right.
So he doesn't feel like he has to shoot 6 a game, 5 a game, 6 a game.
Right, because you got those guys that they're shooters, and if they miss a couple, they're going to shoot. They're in their brain, I'm going to shoot my way out of this versus not shooting, and they end up going like 2 for 12, and because they don't. It's just a bad night where these guys might go 1 for 5, and it doesn't kill you because they're not hunting that shot.
At times that was to Julius, and some of it didn't look like threes because he loved taking step back
20-footers.
Yeah. But Dave was going to get a bunch of those shots up because it was in his bag, and he was one of the only guys with a bag. So everybody else had a knapsack. Dave had a bag.
Yeah,
that's Nick.
That's the thing. I think with this team is, I think you guys talked about it. There's probably not a consistent 15-point scorer, but there's probably 5 guys that on a given night could give you 17, 18, 20. Maybe not Vic's 26. That's probably an outlier. But you're not totally dependent on, like, if Dave and Landers don't get near 20,
they were dead.
To get together, we're not winning.
Right. If one of them was off.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, both of them better get near 20 or we're not winning. Yeah. This team feels, at least at this point, like CJ had 2 points Sunday?
Yeah, he didn't hardly shoot.
Right.
And the 2 points he got was pump faking a closeout. And they're, and getting into the lane. So I will say, one of the things that we talked about last year, like, don't say this stuff just to say it. Last year, that team lacked the ability to get into the lane and to contract the defense. They didn't have it. It just wasn't there. And that with Jizzle and Day-Day does not seem to be, a major concern.
Before you get to Bearcat Mix question, I do want to ask you, through 3 games, are there any I just said I didn't really watch the second half of the last game. Didn't catch a lot of the second half of the first game. Are there any early trends that are worrying you, that like you say this could be a pretty big problem once we get to Big 12 play? If there's, I know the rim stuff is what it is unless Jamil and Aziz are eligible, so that's an understood thing. But is there anything else that you've kind of seen that you're like, this needs to get fixed, or it could be a lingering problem all year?
Not really yet. Because I think defensively they've done so far a lot of the things that you would think a team with minimal rim protection would have to do. I still think the rotations and the help side, like the things that are going to come with experience and time, will come with experience and time as this team continues to build its identity. But not really. Like, they've defended the 3 incredibly well. While teams have had it easy when they've gotten to the rim, I don't know about you and what you've watched, but I don't feel like they're just getting beat off the bounce relentlessly.
Yeah.
Like last year, there were times where it was like, my God. Like,
yeah, it's not so much like the straight line drives.
Right. Like where guys are just getting the ball, ripping through, going to the rim for a layup. Like,
what was it? This post was it? I don't know if it was the post game or the weekly new. West seemed to be frustrated with the offense. Do you know kind of what that's centered around?
I asked him about it yesterday, and just because I wanted to get more on that. I think it's just that they're not like operating at full potential yet. I don't think it was any one, like, yeah, they probably wanted to get Vic more post touches in the first 2 games. And that's why it was something that they did immediately on Sunday. First play, Vic, duck in, get big, throw him the ball. I guess Wes said tonight on the coach's show that the plan was for Vic to just turn and hammer on somebody, but he ended up hitting like a 3-footer. So that would be something I think, like, if you're going to be a team that shoots the 3 pretty well, you're going to shoot it even better if you can feed the post and have that post guy
establish that early. They start doubling down. Adjusted tempo 132nd.
I think it's about right for this
team.
Do
you think there's opportunity to be better in transition and increase that number, with 2 guards like Jizzle and Day and some guys on the wing? Do you think that's
an area that's about right? I think around 100. Honestly, like a lot of that, if you look at the teams that are really at the top of that, they're not good.
Right.
Like, I think somewhere in that 100 range is probably tempo-wise where you want to be, because you still have to be good. And this, one of the things I was going to get to, the wing depth is as advertised so far. CJ has been good. Newman has been good. Seamas has been good. Dan has been kind of what we expected from Dan, what we explained was going to happen as Dan adjusts to being asked to do some things he's never done before in his life.
Mm-hmm.
So some of that is going to take an adjustment period. So while you want to push the tempo, Dave, you're also not afraid to play in the half court.
Well, here's my question. Is it possible, and I'm sure it is at the highest level, like I think Kansas is number 1, but there are teams in the top 10, like George Washington is 175 overall, and they're 6th in adjusted tempo. Belmont is 183 overall and 4th. is it possible to truly care about defense and also play at a high tempo?
Yeah, because I think there are ways that you can you probably have to be a pressure team to do that.
Because like the other good teams that are high in tempo are like Arizona and Iowa, and I'm not sure those guys really dig in on defense like I think Wes wants to. So, outside of Kansas, there's a lot of either like bad teams that just play fast.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the reasons teams like that play fast, Dave, is because they don't feel confident that if they get into a half court, that they're going to be able to score.
Yeah.
So we have to run, because the minute that another team slows us down, we're screwed.
Yeah. Or they're not very good on defense, so they're just trying to match baskets.
Right. With this team, I don't think this is going to be a team that grinds shot clock very much. But I don't think they're going to be afraid to run 15 seconds of offense because they feel like they're going to be able to get a good shot in that.
Yeah.
You try to push it for 6 or 7 seconds, you back it out, you run 15 seconds of offense. You still got plenty of time on the shot clock, but you took a good shot with 8 seconds left. Like, that's one of the beauties, Dave, of not having guys where the ball sticks. It's one of the reasons we always talk about the trouble with teams that play in isolation. If that isolation doesn't work, you just chewed up 8 seconds off the shot clock with one guy dribbling the ball, one defender standing in front of him, and everybody else watching.
Yeah. We were 112th in tempo last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to find, we were 295th the year before that.
Yeah, the year before that it's not
good. Houston, this is great. They're second. These are all Ken Pump stats. Again, very early. Houston is second overall, 11th in adjusted offense, 1 in adjusted defense, and 296th in tempo. So they just play slow and play great offense and play great defense.
It's the epitome of kind of what Kelvin Sampson has done.
Yeah.
Since he's been there. We're going to grind you up and chew you out on defense.
And on offense, we're going to be
super efficient.
Yep.
They haven't had a point guard that really gets down the floor since he's been there. They've all been a little bigger. They've been shooters, but not like get the ball and just go.
No.
Now, they will at some points, because they spot an advantage or whatever, but that's not their MO. They want to grind you out, just grind you out on both ends of the floor. So I like from 100 to 120, 130, right in that range is, I think, a really good spot to be in tempo-wise if you're trying to play like they're trying to play. I would guess, Dave, if as Jizzle and Day get more comfortable, you'll probably see that bump a little because they will find spots.
Mm-hmm.
The rebounder will find spots to get them the ball quicker and let them get down the floor quicker. But also, you're going into a league that defends.
Oh, yeah.
So you're not going to be getting a whole lot of those easy end-to-end buckets that jump up your tempo because you scored in 4 seconds on 6 possessions a game. That's just not. You ain't doing that shit in the Big 12, bro.
No.
Bearcat Nick wants to know, would you expect the combo guard from the portal to replace not getting Perry? Maybe. I think you have to remember when Cincinnati was starting, going through this entire cycle, they were going through the entire cycle with 2 guys that had never dribbled the ball in a Division I basketball game. So you better, while you don't know what you have, have an eye on adding some help there, just in case. Like if you can get a guy in November that can come into your roster next year and bolster that. Seeing what we've seen now, maybe doesn't make it as, because they're both going to be here next year, maybe doesn't make it as dire, but let's see what happens the rest of the season, because that could change by April, where by April you're like, we better get a guy in here, just to have a third guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'd always prefer a third guy that can be at minimum a secondary ball handler.
Yeah, if things get real squirrely, like can be your point, but it's not necessarily his best role.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like, I know people get so caught up in like what the services list a kid at. I didn't see Travis Perry as a Big 12 point guard. I saw him as a guy that could really shoot and knew how to score. And if you needed him to, he could initiate offense and, bring the ball up, but was never going to be the guy like, hey, we're going to throw it to you and you're going to be a one-man press break.
Ooh.
Or, was just going to be like a facilitating type point guard. The guy scored. He's going to score maybe 4,000 points, 5,000 points in high school. He's a scorer. So I saw him more as like a combo guard that scores than a point guard that, you can lean on, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
But I mean, I liked his game. It wasn't that I'm not trashing on Travis Perry. My scout was never that he was a guy that you're going to, especially look, if what Wes wants a point guard to look like, it's Day and Jizzle. That's not what Travis Perry looked like.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. That's not what his game resembled, was those two.
No.
Thrifty Walrus said my wife's coworker spent a little over $1,000 on a hotel tailgate spot tickets. First time anyone spent that much money to end up in Morgantown.
I do need to say before we get out of here, I know it's late, but we did have 2 tickets just become available today. So if there is anyone that is interested, has been considering, wants to go, please reach out to me and we'll figure out a way to get the tickets to you at a probably just a face value situation. So if anybody's looking to make a last minute trip and sit by Mr. BCJ Twitter, you can do that this week in Morgantown.
Next question. If Aziz and Reynolds do not get their waivers, would they still have 2 years left to play and use this as a redshirt season? For Aziz, he played in 2021. That gives you a COVID year, right? 20 was the COVID year.
Sure. I don't know anymore.
So that would give him a COVID year like it didn't happen, essentially. And this would be a redshirt year if he had to sit this year. So technically, I think he would still have 2 if he sat out this year. I would be shocked if that's the route that he took. Because his redshirt junior would be next year, this year would be redshirt junior, then senior, then COVID year.
I don't know.
I just want to make sure. So Jameel started in 2021-22. So he does not have a COVID year, but he's only played 2 seasons. No, so he does actually. Yeah, he did. He was at UCF in 2020-21. So he would have a COVID year. So they're both in the same boat. My guess is if they had to come back next year, they would plan for next year to be their last year in college if things went as accordingly. No, I don't see Travis Perry similar to CJ Frederick. Travis Perry, I see as a combo. CJ, I see as a two, more of a wing than a point guard. But that's the, he's
yeah. I mean,
longer.
He's more
taller,
of a 3 than a 1.
Right. I think that's a great way to put it. More of a 3 than a 1. So yeah, the Travis Perry thing, man. I mean, here's what I'll say about that. I cannot blame the kid for making, for him, what is essentially a 40-year decision. Because he is from a small town in rural Kentucky, and the minute that you put on the Kentucky uniform, you are essentially set for life. There will be a job for him selling insurance in Lyon County and making $200,000 a year for the rest of his life. Worst case scenario. So it's a weird situation because Kentucky basically like gave him the thumbs up. Like, if you want to commit, you're a top 75 kid. You're going to be the leading scorer in the history of Kentucky high school basketball. You can come, but we're not treating you like a 5-star. We're not coming to your school every week. We're not carving out time to make you a priority, but we understand the significance of that to you. We understand the significance of it to the state. And if you want to come play here, you can come play here. It sucks for Cincinnati because they recruited him hard, as did Ole Miss, which shockingly enough, Dave, from what I've gathered, it was Kentucky or Cincinnati. With Alabama third and Ole Miss, like, not even really a factor, which I'm pretty sure, Dave, I like to pull the curtain back a little bit on how I think things happened as they happened. Alabama knew they weren't getting him. Ole Miss knew they weren't getting him, essentially. So when that information starts coming out from Alabama and Ole Miss, it spreads through the college basketball community. Everybody knows Kentucky is not all in on this, right? Kentucky is not sending Cal to Lyon County 2 or 3 times between September and October to, like, let this kid know you're at the top of our list. We're trying to get you. So the consensus is, as this information starts to spread, Kentucky's not really a factor. Alabama doesn't think he's coming. Ole Miss doesn't think he's coming. He's going to Cincinnati. And from the Cincinnati side, they're going, look, that was great, but he hasn't told us he's coming. He's told us he likes us. He's told us that, we have done a great job recruiting him, but he's not told us he's coming to Cincinnati. So that's why the Cincinnati side of things, there was never he's coming to Cincinnati. That's why people that could check with Cincinnati you didn't see the major national guys that are good at this say that he was coming to Cincinnati. I think they wanted to, but then they talk to people around Cincinnati and say, well, if they're not comfortable, I'm not going to make the pick, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going over my skis on a staff that isn't telling me, yeah, we got this, we're gonna get this done. So Ole Miss is saying they're not going to get it done. Alabama's saying they're not going to get it done. Cincinnati's saying we think we're in a good spot, but we don't know for sure. That's where the ancillary crystal ball picks start coming in from places that have a portion of the information, but not all of the information. And then the kid decides he wants to stay home. Over under 1.5 seasons played at Kentucky. if he made this decision like he made this decision, he's not transferring.
He's fine. Yeah, he's fine with whatever that career ends up being.
Right.
And I'm totally like I
more
get
power
it.
to the kid. It was a weird recruitment, but I get it from the kid's side.
Oh yeah.
You just set yourself up for life. Go look at Farmer, Feldhouse, Pelfrey, all these guys that have
Reed Shepherd's dad.
Yeah, Jeff Shepard. All these guys that have been Kentucky high school legends that played at Kentucky, and they're set. Like, as long as they don't fuck up, as long as they're good humans, you're in a good spot for 40, 50 years. Your family is happy. You're making a shit ton of money.
You have the unforgettables.
Right.
I mean, that was what, 30 years ago? And those guys are still, those guys weren't stars on that team.
I mean, here's the thing, Dave. If you would have asked me, and a lot of people did, I just didn't answer. I felt better about Cincinnati's chances than I felt about anybody else. But something was off. Something wasn't adding up.
He was trying to decide, do I want to go to UC and what that means for my basketball career, or do I want to go to the team that I've probably dreamt of playing for every day of my life,
right?
And I maybe care a little bit less about. I mean, I'm sure he's still going to be ultra competitive and be like, I'm going to start, I'm going to play.
Sure. Absolutely.
But anybody that's loved a team. I mean, when I was growing up and I was a kid, I was like, if I ever, obviously never even come close, but it's like, if certain teams offered, as a kid, you're like, I'm going to go there and I don't really care how it turns out. I just that's where I've always wanted to go.
And is that frustrating for Cincinnati because they put a ton of time and effort into Travis Barrett? Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there's a portion of, hey, I wish the kid would have just told us, I want to go to Kentucky.
Yeah.
But I do think, to my knowledge, he informed people at Sunday morning, late Sunday morning, on what was going to happen, which tells me he didn't know.
Literally the 11th hour.
Yeah. Right before tip-off. But that's neither here nor there. But, yeah, more power to the kid because, honestly, he probably made the best life decision.
Well, I mean, it's from our standpoint, you're just frustrated because you think he's a good basketball player and you want him to play for your team. It wouldn't be any different. I wouldn't care what the circumstances were if it was any other kid.
Right.
I don't give a shit that he's from Kentucky and, probably wanted to play there. I understand it from his standpoint, but it's no different than recruiting any other kid and not getting them. You put the time in, you think he's a good player, you want him on your team and you don't get him.
You think you did the best job recruiting him? The kid tells you did the best job recruiting him.
The backstory is inconsequential to me. It's a do or don't business, man. And we can sit here and you can understand the reasons why, and you can say you don't agree or that you do understand. What it doesn't really, to me, it doesn't matter. You either get them or you don't. And I feel no different about this one than I will any other ones that they don't get that we know they really want.
Yeah, it's just funny in this situation that you out, apparently from all of the back end information, you out jostle Ole Miss and Alabama for a kid that they want, and he still picks Kentucky.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
More power to him. I like watching the kid play.
Well, I mean, let's be real. Is there? I don't think there's a brand in a school that means more to a kid from their home state than Kentucky.
Maybe Indiana's very similar.
I still don't think it's like Kentucky, though. I mean, if you're a kid from
North Carolina,
no, not even close.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many.
If you're a kid from Kentucky and they want you to play for them,
I guess the thing being, North Carolina has always kind of been national in
Right.
terms of like their recruit at Kentucky and at Indiana. I would say Indiana is similar. In-state kids have a special place at both of those.
Yeah.
spots.
Especially with Cal now. He can go get whoever he wants, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, but he says, yeah, you can
Oh.
come and you're like, my God, this is all I've ever dreamed of my entire life. Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
If you look at what Reed Shepherd did last night against Kansas, Reed Shepherd might be the governor of Kentucky in 20 years.
20, 30 years.
Yeah, at the rate, if he plays like that, like what we saw last night against Kansas, they were significantly better with Reed Shepherd on the floor. That's also something that's going to be tough for Travis Perry, is they already have they have better Travis Perry. And I mean, he's going to be there for probably a while. But Reed's not a lock first round NBA guy.
No.
But yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I thought they did a good job recruiting him. They put themselves in a good position. It didn't break their way in the final hours. So, but
We just got to drink more Cincy Light, I guess.
Tyler McKinley, Tyler Betsy do sign last Wednesday, and that's pretty damn good recruiting class.
Oh yeah.
You get 2 4-stars that have size and skill and can help you in a lot of ways. You're aimed in the right direction if you keep recruiting kids like that. All right, you got anything else?
I don't think so.
That would be great, Geoff, if they just recruited Tylers.
Yeah, who's
Every kid.
who's the big Tylers in the 2025 class? We got
Every kid. Just go get all Tylers. You got to, then you'll have to, T-Mac, T-Bet, like you just T something to differentiate all of them.
T Swift.
Yeah, is there a T Swift in the it makes Aaron so mad when we do any.
I mean, why else
when we even mention it, he gets
why else would I have said it?
I know, and you can see him in the background there just shaking his head. Oh boy.
Cameron Boozer kind of sounds like a Tyler.
Yeah, he's named after Cameron Indoor Stadium. I wonder where he's gonna go.
I don't know.
Oh shit. I'm good.
There's a Tyler Jackson from Overtime Elite in the 2025 class. He's number 27 in the country. Get on that.
I'll tell the staff to get on that. Make him the priority.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'd feel better if he was at St. Thomas in Connecticut.
Yeah. Probably the case.
Or from Cincinnati.
Yeah. Ooh, there's a Ty List. That's kind of like Tyler.
It's close.
He's from Snellville, Georgia. He's the 68th ranked player in the country.
I mean, if you're gonna do something like that, you're gonna have to make a few exceptions.
Trayvon?
Well, no, that's not Tyler.
No, but you have Tyler, Trayvon, Tylus. We just kind of get all that going. We're down into the hundreds, and we don't recruit guys in the hundreds anymore. And
nobody under 100, Dave. We don't do that anymore.
No Tylers in the 2025 class.
We're gonna have to look at Tylers in the portal. How many Tylers are in the portal?
I know.
Pickle, welcome back. You want to take us out, Pickle? You want to get us out of here?
Oh yeah.
All right. Before we go, thanks as always to Home Field Apparel.
I was going to say, did we have a home field read?
I was supposed to do it before basketball, and I'm an idiot. Thanks to Home Field Apparel. Go to homefieldapparel.com. Get yourself the bomber jacket. They are awesome looking. BCJ23 is the code to use at checkout. Save yourself 15%. Homefieldapparel.com. They have an awesome selection of Bearcats retro gear, the Cax hoodies, the gray Angry Bearcat hoodie, which is my favorite. I don't even, you know what, Dave, I don't even really wear that hoodie anymore outside of like, it's the first thing I put on every morning when I take the dogs out.
Yep. I wear my Tennessee one, like to take Will to school a lot.
Yeah. It's my take the dogs out hoodie. It's stationed right by the bed. When I get up in the morning, put the joggers on, put the gray home field hoodie on, and freeze as the dogs have fun frolicking in the backyard at 7 a.m. But thanks to Home Field, and they will have a bunch of great Black Friday stuff coming up as well. So stay tuned next week for more great deals by Home Field. But for now, BCJ 23 at checkout will get you 15%. Thanks to Turtles Brew. Thanks to Team Ticker. And as always, thanks to our title sponsor, the Holy Grail. That's going to wrap it up. Bearcats, Mountaineers, 2:30 Saturday. We'll see you at the Grail. And then Bearcats in KU Sunday, 2 o'clock, Fifth Third Arena. Revenge. That's the BCJ podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail, right here on BearcatJournal.com.